It is my pleasure to welcome you today. My name is Maria, and I am Community and Outreach Officer for Europe PMC. Today, we will talk about making EDCTP-funded research open with Europe PMC Plus. And first, we will hear from Pauline Beati from EDCTP about the funder side of things, introducing EDCTP itself and talking a little bit about why they joined Europe PMC. We will then hear from Frances Rogers, who is the Author Customer Support Specialist, who will introduce your PMC and cover the submission process. And we will finish off by presentation from Sama Rosanovsky, who is the Community Outreach Officer, and she will talk about the benefits of having your research in Europe PMC. So without further ado, I invite Paulina to take over and tell us about EDCTP.
Okay, so first of all, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Pauline Beati. I'm the Operations Manager at EDCTP. I'm sure I've interacted with some of the grant holders, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to this session. And I'm also welcoming on behalf of the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, SIDA for short, because they are supporting EDCTP to join Europe PMC. Now, this is a session to introduce EDCTP, but I'm sure that we have grant holders on the call, so you all know about EDCTP. So first of all, really, I just wanted to get straight to it and to talk a bit about what we've been investing in. So this chart shows the investment of the EDCTP2 program over the last, I would say, 7 years by our work plans, because our grant holders know we launch calls via an annual work plan. So if you look at the investments, it's actually up. It's slightly more than this chart shows, but by the end of our work program 2020, we have invested I think it's 814.3 million euros in research and research capacity strengthening. And the way this breaks down is into 431 projects, and the vast majority of funding is going to clinical trials, 684 million, 140 projects doing clinical research, clinical trials that take place in sub-Saharan Africa, done by large-scale consortia of European and African researchers. Then we have 90 projects, 85 million, that support what we call enabling the research environment. And this includes regional networks, ethics and regulatory capacity strengthening, and other activities such as pharmacovigilance strengthening. A smaller amount, but I think still very important, supporting our fellowships. And we have 201 fellowships, and that equates to 44 million. And through these, we're supporting career development of researchers in Africa. If we look at this in terms of the countries, we do have a very, I think, broad coverage across Africa and in Europe, because of course we're a program that's a partnership between Europe and Africa. And I think compared to our previous program, we've really done much better in terms of the spread across Africa of countries and researchers participating in projects, research projects, or in capacity strengthening projects. And in Europe as well, we are covering many countries across the European continent. Now, I've talked about the money that we have given out, or we're committed to give out, and how many projects we're funding, but it's not all about what we're giving out, it's what this brings. And I want to say a bit more about outputs and impact, and I think this is where our membership of Europe PMC becomes important. So we did have a strategic plan with targets, and you can see some of these in this slide. So it was that we would launch 1 phase 3 trial per year. Well, there's been 7 years of the program, and we're supporting 39 phase 3 clinical trials. we were to fund at least 150 trials, clinical trials. We're funding much more than that when you take into account, phase 1 to 4 trials, but also diagnostic studies, which are not following that. So we have 332 clinical studies. And again, one of our actions was to increase clinical trials with African leadership. And this is what it looks like at the moment. 34% of our RIAs, and these are the projects that support clinical trials, have an African coordinator. What that really means is that an African institution is leading on that grant, although of course all of the clinical trials we are supporting are led by researchers in Africa. And if you look at our funding, majority of funding is going to Africa. And if you look at the publications that are coming out, the majority of those, 59% at the moment, have at least one leading author from an institution in Africa. And that's either in the first or last, or indeed first and last author positions. Now, when we get on to some other targets, if we look, one of them was to reduce time to complete clinical trials. I'm afraid that just didn't happen at all. Nobody was going to know that COVID-19 have such an impact on all of us, and of course on our trials, which have done extremely well to keep going and to reset during the COVID pandemic. But an important one was also about peer-reviewed publications, and we had a target of 1,000. Now, from what we've seen, we have 555 to date, but actually we used to get most of that information from our project reports, and actually we were trailing at about 220 odd. But when we started to engage with Europe PMC, we found that actually we could track many more publications. And even just from us looking, without all the support that we're going to hear about from colleagues presenting on this session, we could come up with many more. And just to mention again that CEDA has supported us to join as a funder with Europe PMC. And this is going to be very important for us to track publications and outputs. Just to remind our grant holders that we do have an open access obligation. This is Article 29 of the Grant Agreement 29.2. Each beneficiary must ensure open access. And then when we look at Article 29.4, this is about our funding, how you must acknowledge EDCTP and the European Union in any output or publication or presentation that results from your EDCTP project. Now, just to direct also grant holders that we do have guidance on our website, a guidance document on how to acknowledge. And of course, your primary contact is your project officer. And you should let them know in advance about any publications, and also to seek guidance on acknowledgements, because sometimes it can be extremely complex at EDCTP because we have multiple funders who are funding our program. And just to say that this on the slide, you can see some of how we recommend that you acknowledge us. And it's quite a complex acknowledgement, especially if you have under other funders, but this gives you some examples. And I would say at a minimum, you must acknowledge EDCTP. And by that, I mean EDCTP2, because that is the program, and you must use the correct grant code. And I'll just stop sharing and say I didn't want to take a lot of time, but I hope it's given you a flavour of how important it is to all of us, and I think to the scientific community, not just our EDCTP grant holders and funders, but to everyone, that the outputs from this, I would say, massive investment of public funding into research related diseases taking place in Africa, it's really important to all of us that the results are made public. And we think that this initiative is a key part of this in ensuring that publications are open access. And I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Paulina. Thank you so much for introducing EDCTP. We will talk a little bit more about how that translates into the functionalities that Europe PMC Plus provides and how we can support the grantees who wish to make their publications open and those who acknowledge their funder properly. So with that, over to Frances.
I'm Frances. I'm Rogers. I'm part of the help desk team. So if you interact with us, it will likely be me or my colleague David Stevenson who you interact with, and we're very happy to deal with any queries that you have at any point. So today I'll be discussing introducing Europe PMC to you, also focusing on the EDCTP open access policy and how you can comply with that, and how you can submit papers and link grants via Europe PMC Plus to comply with the EDCTP policy. Okay, so Europe PMC is a global database of life sciences research. We pull in a lot of content, and we also help 35 funders comply with their open access policy. So we predominantly have scientific abstracts and full text articles, but we also have agricola records, NHS guidelines, patents, and since 2018 we've been indexing preprints, and we're currently indexing full text of COVID-19 preprints. We also like to give users as much information behind the paper and connected to the paper all in one place. So we have our own citation network. We also pull in data from other databases. We text mine for that data. So for example, clinical trials, which could be important for you. We also integrate very well with ORCID, and we also link with our funders and other biomedical providers grants. Just to explain a little bit how the search works, we search full text and abstracts at the same time, so this may be a little bit different if you're more used to PubMed, which is searches the abstract only, or PMC, which searches the full text. And to perform a basic search, it's really easy. You just put in your query, so in this case Lassa fever, and press enter or the search bar. And on all our website pages, you will find the search bar. So you can, at the moment, you will find that the articles are sorted by date, but you can select to sort by relevance or time cited. And you can also use the filters to the left of the page to refine your search to give you specific years or types of article. So underneath the search bar, there is a little advanced search text. And if you press on that, you will be given a lot more options to help you refine your search. This is also really useful to help you get used to our syntax. And yeah, you can really dive down into making a very specific query if that's what you need to do with all of these options. And if you have any queries about how to do that, do get in touch with us. But I'll just give you a couple of examples. So if you're looking for malaria with anemia in any of the fields, and funded by the EDCTP, oh, sorry, you will get your results, and you'll also get the syntax at the top. So I find that very useful. So how this will help, how Europe PMC will help you comply with the open access policy. So this is the open access policy in full. And what that really means is your article should be available via Europe PMC within 6 months of publication by the journal. So how can you comply with that? So sometimes quite a lot of journals will send your article to PubMed Central on your behalf. So you don't have to do anything, it happens by magic. Or you can use the Europe PMC submission system, Europe PMC Plus, to self-archive if you've published in a journal that doesn't do that. And how you can find out how, if you need to submit a paper. So firstly, sometimes in the journal information, it will say indexed by PubMed Central, in which case you're covered. If not, you can go onto our website, europemc.org, tools, journal list, and then you'll land on this page where you can search for journal titles. And the information we're really interested in here is the free access and the participation level. And so if you find that the journal has immediate free access and a full participation level, there's no need to submit. It will automatically be sent to PubMed Central, and the full text will be available in Europe PMC. If it's no longer participating, or if there's full participation but free access takes over 6 months, please do submit your paper to us. So also, what version of the paper do you need to submit to us? So this varies between journals, and it will generally be the version that the journal has accepted. So it will be the version that has undergone all the changes that have been suggested by reviewers and accepted. But if the published version of the paper has a Creative Commons license, the published version can be submitted. And there will be journal-specific information found often in the author information under open access or archiving on journal websites. And I did notice on Pauline that it said a lot of articles are published via BMC, and they should all be PubMed Central submitting, I believe. But if you do have any questions, please do ask us or the journal. So if you need to submit your work, you'll be using the Europe PMC Plus manuscript submission system, which is at plus.europemc.org. And this is the landing page. And once you log in to start a submission, you will find any manuscripts that you've been involved in, and they're listed in terms of needing attention with us or complete. And to start a new submission, you press on the blue plus at the top right. So you'll then be asked for the title of the article. We try to do this because we are connected to PubMed. We are part of PMC International, and the earlier we can get an article linked to its PubMed ID, the smoother the process. If you need any help whilst you're making your submission, there is information to the right of the system in blue, and please do ask us if you do have any questions. So once you've found your citation, you'll then link all your grants, select the embargo period, and then upload your files. So you can do a drag and drop or click, and we do also want your supplementary files. It may be that you're submitting. It may be that you're submitting on behalf of somebody else, in which case you can select them to be the reviewer, so they can double check the submission. And you'll also have a preview. So we accept doc and PDF files, and sometimes your Word file may be a little bit formatted a little bit strangely due to the preview, but that is okay. Our typesetters will be using the submitted files. And also, we need you to tick off these questions, but this should all be fine. So the journals are aware that this is what happens and that it's all okay. And then there is a submission screen where you to let you know that it has been submitted, and you can claim your manuscript to your ORCID. And in case you have grants to link, but the full text is available, what will happen is the system will let you know. So you'll find your citation, link your grant, and it will then tell you, oh, it's okay, you don't need to submit any files to us, we've already got what we need, but we will link the grant for you. And if you have any queries at any time, please do email the help desk at helpdesk@europemc.org, and either myself or David will reply to you.
Brilliant, thank you, Fran. We will now talk a little bit about benefits of having your publication after you submit it through the process that Fran has described, and this will be covered by Summer.
So I'm Summer, and I'm going to take you through the benefits for authors and readers of publications by having them in Europe PMC. One of which is funder policy compliance that Francis went through for us. The second that I want to look at is increased visibility, enhanced user experience, recognition for authors, and support for further research. I'm going to start with increased visibility. Europe PMC is an open access platform, and Francis has explained how to submit your manuscripts so they're openly available in Europe PMC. This increases the visibility of your papers because there's no paywalls, subscriptions, or user account requirements that restrict access to view your research, allowing anyone to access your research. Furthermore, they're also full text. So as Francis had previously explained, not only do Europe PMC share your abstract, but it's also the full text. So when searching, the search engine goes through the abstract and the full text for searches, rather than just through the abstract or full text. This makes Europe PMC unique, and it will return your research on more searches as the terms are searched through larger amounts of the research article. And this does exclude the references. Europe PMC also has millions of users all over the globe that can now reach your work. However, you don't only reach Europe PMC users, your research will reach many more users as Europe PMC content is shared with PMC USA, indexed in Google, and the content is indexed in Unpaywall. Unpaywall is an open source tool to make your research more open, accessible, and reusable. It finds free versions of papers that you're trying to access. So if the publisher doesn't have a free copy and Europe PMC does, Unpaywall will link users to this article in Europe PMC so it can be accessed, increasing the visibility of research in Europe PMC. The first thing I'd like to explore is then enhanced user experience. Europe PMC is committed to innovation that makes research more visible and accessible. One way this is done is through making clear article sections which add value to the research. As you can see on this slide, there are article sections, including the abstract, where you get the summary of your results, the figures, where you get all of the figures of the research in one place without having to scroll through a whole research article. And then you also have free full text, where you can access the free full text, where you'll find the further sections that you'd usually expect for a research article, including your introduction, methods and results. And this makes searching for paper much easier for readers and easier to scan through. There are also some further article sections shown here that add further value to your research if it's in Europe PMC, including citations and impact, data, reviews, similar articles, and funding, which I'm going to touch on in the next slides. Let's explore linking to citations and impact first. This includes a citation graph, which monitors the number of citations year by year of your research article. This clearly shows your citation impact, and this graph can be used to showcase this for various things, such as grant applications, reports for your funders, or university affiliations. There's also Outmetrics, which is used to link to alternative metrics, and it displays the attention surrounding your article online. So this can come from a range of sources, including news reports, Twitter, Facebook, and others. And this graphical breakdown helps you monitor and report attention surrounding your research. There is also something called Scilite Smart Citations. So this links you to a citation statement that's from a full text article that mentions your research. So this makes it really easy to see how other researchers have mentioned your research and in which way, giving you very quick image of where your research come up. So you can see those comments really quickly without having to go through the whole research paper. And it also provides the author with added value, because you can see if at the bottom, if they were contrasting with you, supporting you, or if it was a mention. This helps you really keep track of citation statements in your field, the impact of your work, new work in your field, and potentially finding potential new reviewers. It also adds value for the readers by showing them other relevant papers in the field and enabling them to build a full picture that can help for literature reviews around the research presented. Another way that we enhance user experience is by linking to data. So this is the data behind the article, and there's 46 different resources we can do this for. You can click on the links in this section and be taken to the relevant page to provide the user with more information, for example, about a protein or protein structure. Here's an example for PDBE, where you can view the protein structure itself in Europe PMC without being taken to their website. Or you can also then click, if you see there's a little box with an arrow on it, you can follow this link, and that will take you to their website and provide you with even more information. So this adds value, making it really easy to find information about the different things within the paper. There's also linking to the review section. In the reviews and recommendations, they're from expert sources, which makes it easier for readers to find comments around the content and evaluate content presented critically. And this also allows authors to quickly find and see reviews and help them understand how people are viewing their research. Another great feature is the linking to similar articles. If you're looking for articles that are related to that previously searched, you can check this section. For researchers, this is advantageous because it provides research in the field, enabling you to get a broader understanding, and can be really useful for assisting those writing literature reviews or trying to understand a new field. And it's a really good place for authors to find potential new reviewers. Europe PMC also contains funding information that's linked to in the article sections. So this is where you can find which funders have supported the given work. For example, in this article, it was funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, EDCTP, and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. You can expand the funder listed, as I have here for EDCTP, to get more information such as grant name, PI name, grant ID, and publications linked to this grant. This is really useful for authors to see who's funding similar research projects to theirs and to check that their funding information is there all in one place, and then also for users to go and see who's funded which pieces of research. There is also the Grant Finder. The Grant Finder is an easy way to find information, and it uses different search keywords. As authors, you can access this by the top navigation bar, navigating to tools and then onto Grant Finder as highlighted on the slide. The Grant Finder tool lets you search by keywords in the project title, abstract, for the PI's name, institutional name, funder or funder's name, and the grant ID. And it returns hyperlinks for available grants related to your search. This makes it really easy for authors to find their grant information and other grant information for similar areas. Recognition for authors. So we're going to start with what is an ORCID ID. ORCID provides each researcher with a digital identifier known as an ORCID ID, and that's unique to that researcher and can be used to claim their work. As authors, you can claim your papers to your ORCID ID in Europe PMC, and this is also then used to create an author profile in Europe PMC. Author profiles can be accessed by users and authors by hovering over each author on the paper or research article. And then you can see the option to view the author profile, which will take you, if you follow that link, to the author profile page, and you will see a graph similar to the one shown here. And this shows you the information about the total number of articles and citations. The number of abstracts are shown in grey, free full text in dark blue, free full licensed articles in green, and preprints in light blue. The graph produced gives you a yearly breakdown with the bar chart representing the number of publications and the line graph the number of citations. This is a really useful way for authors to keep track of all your publications, keeping them organized and making it easier to list them when required, for example, when applying for grants or as evidence of impact for current funders. Europe PMC also supports further research in multiple ways, and this is included through text and data mining. One way this is done is through author-submitted manuscripts, and these are included in a special bulk download subset. This means they can be easily reused for large-scale literature and bioinformatics studies, as well as further text and data mining. Europe PMC also collaborates with several expert text mining groups, enabling sharing of text mined insights with publication readers using the SciLight tool. And the SciLight tool is annotations. So the SciLight tool means that articles have an annotation function where biological terms or relations such as disease, chemicals, or protein interactions can be highlighted for readers on abstracts and the full text. This makes it really easy to scan an article and get a quick overview, find key concepts, and discover evidence such as gene disease association, enhancing the user's experience. It also supports scientists and database curators in their literature research by harnessing the power of text mining to support further research. Another great way further research is also supported is through the indexing of preprints. A preprint is a version of a paper which precedes peer review and publication in a journal. It may have undergone some basic screening before publication in a repository and is used for rapidly disseminating results, becoming increasingly popular in life science, and support further research by sharing the most up-to-date discoveries. Europe PMC indexes preprints from 15 different sources, and they're enriched with the user enhancement features discussed earlier, including citation and impact, data, community reviews, and annotations. Preprints also have an additional feature where they're linked to versions and published versions to ensure the user is kept with the most up-to-date and current research to support their further work. Here's an example of what that would look like. So here's a preprint in Europe PMC, and there's an orange box showing that there's a published version available to make it easy for researchers to get the most up-to-date information, so that then these can be applied to further ideas for further research. Further research is also supported using email alerts. You can save search terms so that they're saved on your profile for convenience. This makes literature searches much easier because you know exactly what searches are the most beneficial for you in finding the research you're interested in. And you can also set these up as email alerts for these search terms so that you're alerted with new content in Europe PMC to help you stay up to date, supporting your knowledge and therefore ideas for further research. To summarize, it's advantageous to have your article in Europe PMC because it allows you to comply to your funder policy. It gives greater visibility of research, such as showing full text in Europe PMC, which allows us to search through the full text and abstract when users search, enhanced user experience for readers, such as the data behind the publication, recognition for authors, such as ORCID linking and author profiles, and support for further research, such as text and data mining. I'd like to thank all of Europe PMC's funders and then open the floor to any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for all of the presenters. We will now move on to the Q&A. So the first question that we have is, I normally have seen publications automatically appear in Europe PMC. Does EDCTP now require the authors to directly submit to Europe PMC? And what are the benefits of Europe PMC over PubMed or PMC? Fran, could you possibly take this one, Fran or David?
Yeah, so essentially, Europe PMC is the only real difference in this sense is we have some additional content compared to PubMed and PubMed Central, and also it's just that you will be using the Europe PMC Plus system to get any EDCTP funded articles in journals that are not automatically indexed. You can get the content into Europe PMC, which also means it will be in PubMed and PubMed Central. So it's a collaboration.
Thank you, Fran.
And so you don't have to directly submit unless it's not going to be sent by the journal. Sorry, I think I missed the first question.
No, that sort of answers it. So you are required to directly submit to your PMC if that publication isn't already available via PMC USA. So if that is the case, then your PMC gives you that additional benefit. So Fran has talked about the benefits for the authors in terms of being able to submit the publications that don't appear in PubMed and PMC. But also equally, Summer in her presentation covered some benefits of your PMC to the readers and how your PMC differs over PubMed and PMC in terms of additional content, such as preprints, indexing, full text, along with the abstracts, some additional search benefits, and so on and so forth. I hope that answers this question. So the next question we have is, what is the rationale for having your PMC in addition to PubMed? And does your PubMed Central have better, more friendly features? I would say we sort of touched on the first question already, but maybe something else to mention is that of course, because this is a collaboration between Europe PMC and PubMed Central USA, we also provide additional stability. If one of the archives is temporarily unavailable, the other one is online and running. So there's additional security. And obviously, it allows us to develop different features that serve different audiences and in that way push innovation a little bit further. And for the second question, well, I hope we do have more user-friendly features, but obviously, you know, this is a very subjective question. I encourage everybody to go ahead and explore them on the Europe PMC website. So the next question we have is, EDCTP fellows need to add their publications in the EDCTP alumni webpage, which is slightly tedious work because of its not automatic population of the article from the journal. Will the use of PMC Europe replace this? And I think this is a question for Beate. I apologize, for Pauline.
Hi, thanks very much for that question. I think it came from Stella. I think it's a good point, Stella. And I mean, we're only just embarking on using Europe PMC. And what we're going to have to do is, I think, look at the various ways we're collecting data and the demands on our grant holders, because I know how frustrating it is if you have to do something twice. So I think we are going to look at that and see what the best way is to go forward. I think for the time being, yes, we would like you to continue to update your profile. As I understood, I think it was also some possibilities with ORCID for some automated upload as well. But we will come back to you in more detail about that. But we do appreciate the point you're raising. Over.
Thank you. And thank you, Stella. So we have a question. Is it possible for a research institution to subscribe to your PMC Plus, or is this option only for research funders? Possibly one of our help desk members can answer that.
Yeah, I mean, I can answer that. I mean, we no one subscribes to Europe PMC. We are an open access repository, so any content that we have in full text is freely available, and anything else is a citation that links through to the publisher website. So it's not really a case of subscribing to it. It's free for everybody, and the partnership with EDCTP is to help get more free full text content in there for more people to read.
But it is possible for a research institution in theory to join Europe PMC as a funder. And if you're interested, then we'll send some links in the chat. Perhaps David could add the joining Europe PMC link if you want to see more information on that. So the next question is to clarify the last point from Francis. If the journal has already automatically submitted the article to PMC Europe, if I tried to submit via Europe PMC Plus, the system would let me know it's already there. You've already got the article, and you would simply link the article to the grant. Is that?
Yes, that is what should happen.
Another question is, can I submit a non-EDCTP funded article to Europe PMC?
So unfortunately, we can only accept papers via the Europe PMC Plus system if it has either EDCTP funding or any of our other funding organisations grants. So any of these.
Thank you. We have another question. What is the position of UK after Brexit? Can UK coordinate future applications? I'm not entirely sure whom the question would be best addressed to. So from Europe PMC perspective, we are an international organization, and although we are based in the UK, we are not affected by Brexit in any way. And in terms of authors funded by EDCTP who wish to submit their publications to Europe PMC, they can do so regardless of their geography. But if there are any additional comments from anyone.
Yeah, I'll just come in here. I think that came from Thomas Hanke. I'm not sure it's part of this seminar in terms of the content, but of course an important point. Just to say that the UK has committed to join the EDCTP3 programme, but as far as the mechanics on, who can apply and lead and things, I think that's all still part of the discussions. But we are hoping that, of course, all countries that are part of the EDCTP3 programme should have equal participation rights. Over.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to mention that there are some questions in the chat. Those who have issues with Q&A, we'll try and answer them in the chat, but those who are able, please do type them into the Q&A. And equally, if you've raised your hand, the preferred way for this would be to type the question into the Q&A, but if we have time, we will try and answer those who've raised their hands as well. So the next question we have is, with this partnership with Europe PMC, will EDCTP grantees have access to any scientific papers for Europe PMC database? Well, the answer is yes. Europe PMC is an open access database, meaning that all of the content in Europe PMC, whether it is submitted through Europe PMC Plus or indexed in any other way, is free and open for everybody to use. The next question is, does Europe PMC have a preferred format for we've got one upvote. Could you please confirm that if you submit your article to a journal that is not open access, by submitting this article to Europe PMC, it becomes open access and complies then with EDCTP requirements regarding publications? the help desk question, I believe.
Yes, yeah, that's correct. Sorry if I wasn't clear on that. So yeah, sometimes it's referred to as gold if the publisher sends it directly to PubMed Central and Europe PMC, and green if you yourself submit it via Europe PMC Plus. But yes, that's sort of that's once submitting it to us means it's open access and you do comply with the policy.
Thank you. Does Europe PMC have a preferred format for figures, or should these be uploaded as PDF incorporated in the manuscript?
I'll answer this one. So we do have some preferred file formats. PDF is totally fine. On the submission system, there is a link to some preferred file formats for figures. I can share that in response to the question. But essentially, we do take a lot of things, but PDF's fine, but a recognized file figure file format is preferable. So, PowerPoints, we can accept them, but it's not as easy to deal with as a, JPEG or a TIFF.
Thank you. We've got a request to kindly explain what is one required to do if a manuscript is not found in PubMed.
I mean, I can answer that one. So essentially, you follow the same process that Frances laid out in her part of the presentation. You go to Europe PMC Plus and begin a submission. So it doesn't have to already be in PubMed to begin a submission. It will end up in PubMed and it will end up in PMC.
Thank you. Are we allowed to publish in a journal that only gives free access after 6 months? We just need to submit ourselves to Europe PMC, I assume only after those 6 months. So this is an embargo question.
Oh, sorry. So I think it will be make it available as quickly as you are allowed to. So some journals will have no embargo. Some journals, if they send to Europe PMC after 12 months, you may submit the accepted version to Europe PMC Plus to be released earlier. So yeah, that was what I was trying to say. Sorry if that wasn't clear. But 6 months is the maximum, and if you're allowed to release it earlier, please do so.
Thank you. The next question is, do EDCTP and Europe PMC have a minimum threshold for the impact factor for the journal in which manuscripts are published? So the Europe PMC does not have any impact factor requirements for the EDCTP.
I mean, no, we don't have a requirement. And of course, I'm sure as all people know, it's nice to have your publication in a high impact journal, but it's not only about publishing a paper, it's about impacts in other ways. And sometimes journals get high impact because they publish certain types of research. We're interested in publications and results that lead to important changes in clinical practice and policy, and impact factor is by the by.
Thank you. Is it possible to link authors' previous publications, though not sponsored by EDCTP, on Europe PMC?
It is, but only if they are funded by another one of the Europe PMC funding agencies. And I'll share the link again in the answer.
Thank you, David. Did I catch it correctly that it will take 6 months for a paper from journal publication to appear on Europe PMC?
No, that's not quite correct. So the embargo period by the funder here is maximum of 6 months. So we operate on the embargo period given to us. So really it depends on your journal. If you put an embargo of 0, and then the manuscript you've submitted will appear as soon as it is published. So it really depends on the embargo period given to us when you submit.
Thank you. Additionally, if you're only allowed to publish in Europe PMC journals, how does this align if your work is funded by others, for example, NIH, who again have their own list of journals?
I don't know if someone else can chip in on this, because I think there's not a limit to which journal you publish in. I guess it's more like, does it comply with the policy of your funder? So will it be, if it's not being made open access, and it's not being sent to PMC already, does their embargo requirements match up with EDCTP's embargo requirements? I think that's the only real limit, and that should in most cases match up with the NIH's own funding requirements.
So Europe, just to rephrase that, Europe PMC does not impose any particular limits on the journals. If you're supported by EDCTP and the conditions of publication in that journal match the conditions that the funder have outlined, then you're allowed to publish in that journal and then submit your manuscript to Europe PMC. I don't know if Paulina would like to chime in on that.
No, I think that's pretty much covered, and exactly. We don't have an opinion on which journal you are publishing in, only that you comply with the open access policy. And I think, as Fran and others outlined, if the journal happens to automatically submit to Europe PMC, that's great. But if the journal doesn't automatically submit, then you are the one that submits without restriction, because you're funded by EDCTP and you must be publishing in a journal that complies with the open access policy.
Thank you. So there's a statement from someone that they're very interested in the subject. I just want to remind everybody that first of all, this webinar is recorded, and the link to recording and the slides will be shared with everyone afterwards through the follow-up email and also on the EDCTP website. And equally, if you're interested to learn more about Europe PMC, you can check out the Europe PMC website. Could you please confirm that submission to Europe PMC should be done now retroactively for open access papers already published if the journal is not fully participating?
I guess that would be a question for Paulina. Did you have expectations for this?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I think it would be great if people could upload previously published or publications that came from EDCTP funding into PMC. That would be ideal.
Thank you. Somebody mentions that they mostly publish through SAGE publications, and whether it's possible to view SAGE articles through Europe PMC. Does the help desk know?
So some publishers do have agreements with PMC. Sometimes it's per journal and sometimes it's per publisher. I know that SAGE do have an agreement for some of their content. I think it's really just content that's already paid for open access, and that will automatically, the full text will automatically be sent to PMC. So it really depends on the journal, really. So not all content will be indexed, whether we're talking about abstract only, and then there'll be extra requirements for whether the full text is included or not. So sorry, that's a difficult question to answer. I will share the journal list again, where you can check if your journal is included, and then you can see which publishers are included as well.
Thank you. Just to mention, we do have some questions coming through the chat. Please, if you're able, type them into the Q&A so that we can answer them now. We have a question about preprint servers. How many preprint servers is Europe PMC indexing, and do we provide a list of preprint servers on the website? Perhaps Summer can take this one.
Yeah, we currently have 16, and there is a list on the website. So if I can go and get that link and send it over.
To those who've asked for copies of the meeting, as I mentioned, a link to the webinar recording and the slides will be shared both via an email to everybody who registered and on the EDCTP website. Is there a waiver for non-EDCTP funded article published in Europe PMC?
So we don't have waivers because we're not a publisher. So your work has to already be published in a journal. We're sort of the archive after publication. So unfortunately, if it's not funded by the EDCTP or one of our other funders, we won't be able to convert a manuscript and put it into as full text into Europe PMC.
Just to mention, we still have 1 more minute, but we at the Europe PMC team will stay behind a little bit longer just to answer the remaining questions. So if you're able, hang on and we'll get to the Q&A questions that you've submitted. Do all journals allow you to submit to Europe PMC? Is there no limitation to share?
So some journals will have policies against it. I'd say the vast majority, especially in life sciences, especially you guys are very biomedical, there is the expectation that it will have funding that would require open access and a green open access route, but that does vary with journal to journal, so you would need to check with them.
Thank you. So there are 2 questions. Is the conference recorded? Yes, and we'll share the presentations. What is the deadline for submitting manuscript for publication in this journal? I think we can answer it from Europe PMC's perspective, I guess, rather than from journal's perspective. Is there, so there are no particular deadlines, but to comply with the open access policy of the funder.
Well, yeah, that's it. I mean, they've said that, yeah, there's no deadline from our point of view to get it in Europe PMC, but to comply with your funder, then the embargo period would have to be less than 6 months. So I guess the expectation is that the full text would need to be in Europe PMC within 6 months of the publication date.
Thank you. If a journal does not allow open access or only allows access after 12 months, how can you then submit to Europe PMC? Do journals allow that even if they don't?
Yeah, so again, this will vary by journal to journal. But yeah, generally speaking, you would be able to submit the accepted version and have that available. So there might be an embargo on that, so that might be available from 6 months after the publication, and then they send the full text after the 12-month embargo. But that will vary by journal, but generally speaking, yes.
And may I just come in here to say that from EDCTP point of view, you cannot publish in a journal that has a 12-month embargo period. Our policy is gold or green access. So gold, immediate open access, and green within 6 months. So yeah, let's not get to that situation. We want open access as quickly as possible.
How do we handle open access fees for papers written and submitted to a journal after the EDCTP project has closed at our institution? Is there a fund to support open access fees, or can part of the project funds for dissemination be kept with EDCTP until a paper is accepted, for example, 2-3 years after project closure? I believe this is a Paulina question.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good point, and it's a very difficult question that I don't have a good answer to, really, because our grants are obviously time limited, and we cannot allow holding of funds for many years or even a few years after the grant end date. We try to ensure when we negotiate the grant that the publications will at least be submitted. I know that some other institutions themselves, some institutions where researchers work, have an open access fund, and I know some journals will waive open access fees for researchers in less developed countries. So that's my only answer. We don't have a mechanism for it. We do appreciate it's an issue, but I guess we are trying to push as much as possible that people submit their publications within the time frame of the project. Over.
Thank you. Is there a relationship between Europe PMC and other scientific databases? So we've mentioned already that we are a partner of PubMed Central, and we closely collaborate with PMC and PubMed Central. We also have projects that are centered around reproducibility in linking data and publications. And for that, we collaborate with over 40 different life science databases, including databases like Protein Data Bank, European Nucleotide Archive, and many, many others. So this is kind of where the data and publication linking comes from. And we obviously integrate with and collaborate with many other partners. You've heard ORCID in this presentation, Unpaywall, and many others. Another question is it only the clinical trial publication we could publish in Europe PMC, or can we publish any research topic?
I'll just answer this, and yeah, it's any research topic. So for us, it's any publication that results from your EDCTP grant.
Thank you. Is it the funder requirement of or copyright laws that allow publication in Europe PMC?
So it will be based upon your agreement with the publisher of the journal you are publishing in. So most journals allow the accepted manuscript to be used in a repository in this manner. So it's done on that basis. Obviously, if it's an open access paper, then the copyright is yours, or it's open, so you can put it in. But otherwise, it depends on the journal's agreement you sign with the journal upon publication.
We have one last question in the chat. Would it be acceptable to have a manuscript submitted but not published by the time the grant ends?
I mean, in terms of EDCTP projects, yes, certainly. That is fine. And of course, as was mentioned before, we know also that publications come out after the grant period. So of course, that is fine.
All right, thank you. Thank you to all of the panelists for the presentations today. And thank you to all of you who've attended and asked us many wonderful questions. We hope that we were able to cover them all, but if not, please don't hesitate to contact us via helpdesk@europepmc.org. We thank you for your time and attention, and we hope to see you another time. Goodbye, everybody.